I do. Oh, sorry. I do have some things prepared for you. And at the same time, I know that oftentimes the best way to proceed is for you to ask questions that are on your mind or to let me know what you'd like for me to talk about, and then I can be responsive. That being said, Ella and Mayara, if there's nothing that you have on your minds, you just want me to go, I definitely have stuff prepared for you. So which way would you like me to move? Do you want me to go ahead and present what I have already in the pocket, or do you have any questions that you'd like to open with? Welcome.
I don't have any questions. I'd love to see what you already have.
You got it. I can do that in just a moment. And maybe we'll wait another minute to see if anybody else finds their way into this room. And while we're waiting, Mayara and Micha, if you have questions that you'd like to ask before we get going, I can totally help you out.
Yeah, I also don't have questions. I would like just to see what you have to say.
All right, you got it. All right. So maybe just 15 or 20 more seconds, and then we'll go ahead and dive on in.
Sure.
Thanks for being here today. Are you excited to be here and learn about what we're offering at the colleges?
I'm pretty excited, yeah, but also a little nervous.
I think that's super normal. If you've never taken a college class before, the transition can be kind of intimidating. One thing that I'll tell you is that a lot of the folks at the Seattle colleges know that that process is happening. And so at least the colleagues that I work with most often, they're pretty nice folks. They'll help you out.
All right, that sounds, I'm a junior in high school, so this is all kind of foreign to me. So
yeah.
My apologies if I don't know much of the terminology just with colleges and stuff.
No apology necessary. This is a learning process, and so I'm happy to field any question that you have. So I'm going to go ahead and dive in to what I have prepared for you. But as we move through, please do feel comfortable speaking out or entering something in the chat. I'm really here to serve you, and so if there's something on your mind, I think that's probably the most important thing. But let's go ahead and move on to what I have prepared here. And so, boom, sociology. What are we going to do today? I'm going to begin just by telling you a little bit about myself. So you can already see me in the Zoom, but here's a picture of me from the campus back when we were on campus a couple of years ago. And you can see here that I'm a Seattle native. And I put that on this PowerPoint slide because it turns out that Seattle natives are actually relatively rare in the Seattle area. Did you know that in the Seattle area, only about 3 out of 10 adults were actually born in Washington state? Many of our other Seattleites are coming from other parts of the country. So you can see about 50% were born in other states in the United States. And then about 20% of those adults living in our area were born abroad. So if you are a Seattle native and you stay in Seattle when you're 18, you too will become a rare individual. I think it's kind of fun to be rare. But that's not the only thing I want to tell you about me. I know that many students feel more comfortable with their instructors when they know a little bit more about them. So I also want to share some other details with you. For example, I am a fast food veteran. I worked at Dick's Drive-In for about 5 years after high school. And I had a lot of fun there, did a lot of really cool stuff. I also got tear gassed when I was there because I was there for the WTO protests back in 1999. So if you have questions about what it's like to get tear gassed, or if you want to know the story, I'm happy to share that with you. And I also am an alum of both North Seattle College and the University of Washington. And that just means that I got degrees from North Seattle College and the University of Washington. Although when I was a student, my hair was a little bit longer. And I do have some photos for you. So if you want to see me with really long hair, type that into the chat or unmute yourself and ask for it. I have those photos if you want them. But I also can tell you a little bit of other things about me. For example, I'm a huge hockey fan, and I began my hockey fandom back before the Seattle Kraken were here in our city. So it'll be hard for me making this choice about which team to support. But for now, I remain a Canucks fan. And here's a picture of my dog, Pavel Bure. He's 17 pounds of justice, and he's one of those Chiweenie puppies, so he's long and kind of low to the ground, and he sort of sweeps the ground as he walks. So he does his part to keep the house clean. And then I put here a picture for you of my favorite food, hash browns. And hash browns are delicious. Why? Because they're potatoes that help get butter from over there to right here in my mouth. And anything that gets butter in my mouth is okay food by me. So that's just a little bit about me. And if you have questions, please just punch those into the chat. I'll try to keep an eye on that. But in the absence of questions, I'm going to go ahead and press onward. So if we're thinking about what sociology is, I can't tell you how often I hear from folks that they're like, yeah, I kind of think it's like social work. And I'm like, okay, there's probably some stuff that I can help you to understand a little bit more clearly. And so I begin just by telling you the formal definition of sociology. And sociology is a science. And what that means is that we use a systematic or scientific approach to investigating our major object of analysis. And what we like to investigate is the relationship between each one of us as individuals and the social forces that surround us. And what sociology will argue is that you can't really understand either the individual or social forces without understanding them both, because they're totally related to each other. In fact, probably the fastest way to remember what sociology does is this pseudo-mathematical equation here that just says, yeah, we look at the individual plus social forces. And a sociologist would argue that in order to understand yourself, you have to know where you live. You have to know the characteristics of the neighborhood in which you live. You have to understand your parents' ancestral backgrounds and their educational history. You have to understand the governmental structure of your city, your state, and your nation. There's so much going on in the social world around us, and all of it impacts the choices that we are able to make in our lives, and also the choices that we are unable to make in our lives. And when you start opening your eyes to thinking in the sociological way, it can be totally mind-blowing, because many of us are already naturally sociological thinkers, but we haven't been introduced to the discipline yet. But once you become introduced, you can start investigating a huge range of topics. Now, I only put about 15 topics here. So sociologists study culture. We like to know how people are thinking. What types of norms do people follow? What types of beliefs do people have? And why are there differences between people with respect to different geographies, like Seattle versus Auburn, for example, or different time periods, like 2022 versus 2018. Huge differences in just those 4 years. We study crime, and we want to know why some people end up engaging in crime and other people don't, or why some people are punished and other people are not. We study socialization, which is this process by which we become members of our culture, and we want to know why some folks are socialized one way while other folks are socialized in other ways. We take a look at social structure and social networks. We look at deviance, which is sort of like criminology, but it focuses on norms that aren't laws. Really cool stuff there. We also talk a lot about race and ethnicity, because race and ethnicity are both social constructs. There's nothing inherent or essential about them that means we have to think about race the way that we do. And at the same time, it has sort of a concrete aspect to it as well. Race is meaningful in the United States today. We talk a lot about gender. Gender is one of the big three categories, like race and ethnicity, and then also social class. We want to know why people identify with the gender identities that they identify with, and how they choose to express gender to the world. We also study social class, as I mentioned. How are inequalities functioning in our society? Why do the haves have, and why do the have-nots not have? Social class is a fascinating thing. It underpins much of our daily living. We study immigration too. We ask questions like, why do some people choose to leave their native lands while other people don't? And then we also ask follow-up questions about how that immigration flow impacts both the place that those immigrants leave, as well as the place those immigrants move to. We talk about education and why some people shoot for bachelor's degrees while other people don't. We talk about occupations and social mobility, which is really about jobs. We talk about politics a little bit, but usually leave that to political scientists. And then we also think about the environment. Why are some people so interested in working so hard to combat climate change while other people aren't? And when you're thinking about these topics, they all impact each of us as individuals, right? And at the same time, they're so big that no individual can really address the problem on their own. Meanwhile, one thing I can tell you about this individual right here is that sociology has so much going on that most people don't learn about all of it. We tend to specialize. And so my specialties are in the areas that appear in orange font for you here. I'm a deviance and crime guy, and I also think a lot about race and ethnicity. So I have a general understanding of most of the areas of sociology, but I have in-depth knowledge about these 4 subtopics. So here, just a reminder, if you have any questions along the way, either unmute yourself and let it fly. Oh, Ellie, yeah.
Oh, I was just wondering mostly about like the specialization you said. Like, would that include like how exactly do you specialize in one or more of these topics? Are these generally just included in like classes or like I'm a bit unsure.
Oh, that's a really good question. And I'm impressed that you're asking it because I didn't even think about that until I was like in grad school. And so generally how it works is when you're an undergraduate, I put this in the presentation a little bit further down the line. So you're prescient, which just means that you foretold the future, Ella. Nice job. But oftentimes what happens on the undergrad level is you'll be offered courses. So on the 100 level, you take like a survey course. This is common in most disciplines. You'll take a survey course that sort of lightly skims the surface of many different topics. In Social 101 at North Seattle College, we talk about almost all of these topics. I don't think we talk about environment or politics, but we talk about everything else. So that means you get just a very light curriculum in each of those subjects. But as you move forward on the 300 and 400 level, you'll start taking specialized classes. And oftentimes those specialized classes are not required. You get to slot yourself into what sounds most interesting. That's how I became a criminology guy. Is they offered a criminology class at the UW. I said, oh, that sounds kind of interesting. I slotted myself into that class. I made the choice and I just fell in love with it. Other times you'll be restricted. So depending on the university that you go to, they might not offer all of the different classes that you'd like to take. So when you're thinking about where you'd like to go in the future, I would definitely encourage you to talk with your professors or your academic advisors so that you can make sure that your interests are going to be met at the next place that you go to. So Ella, does that answer your question?
Oh yeah, that answers it pretty well. Thank you.
Excellent. A really good question. Thanks for asking it. And please do let me know if you have other questions as we move through. Okay, but let's go ahead and push forward because right now I want to play a little bit of a game and see if you can answer some of these questions that I have for you. These questions are all about famous sociology majors. And it turns out that, at least from my perspective, as I'm moving through life, I don't hear a lot about sociology majors that make it up to the limelight where people are, what we might call famous. And so I want to see if you can figure out who these famous people are. And so I'm going to tell you some hints. And then if you want to put your guesses into the chat, we can see how we do here. So the hint that I'll give for you for this famous person is this soccer player took Best Woman Player from FIFA in 2019 and called for an end to racism at the ESPYs, which is an awards ceremony. I think it's put on by ESPN. Married to a star WNBA player, she is known for crafty play on the field and activism off it. Do you know who this famous sociology major is?
I'm not very good with sports, unfortunately.
That's totally okay. Totally okay. I won't penalize you in any way. Maybe I'll give 3 seconds to see if anybody else wants to chime in. Okay, let's go ahead and move forward. And did you know, I didn't know until I started prepping this presentation, that actually Megan Rapinoe studied sociology when Megan was in college, which is kind of cool. Megan's super famous. I did not know that Megan was a sociology degree holder. But what about this person here? Here's another one. This Baptist minister and social activist led the civil rights movement in the United States from the mid-50s until his death in 1968. Can you guess who this famous sociology major is? Very famous.
Martin Luther King Jr.
Yeah, nice job,
Okay.
nice job. And so many people know that Martin Luther King Jr. Got a degree in divinity, a PhD in divinity from Boston University. But before MLK went over to Boston University, he got a bachelor's degree in sociology from Morehouse College. And so this is a picture of MLK when he was graduating Morehouse. So you can tell he's younger here. Nice job, Ella. I'm impressed by you. Okay, what about maybe two more? So here's the next one. This one might be more of a historical, well, actually, I guess the last one was a historical question. So can you guess who this famous sociology major is? And Monica, I welcome you, or Monica. So this US president won 489 electoral votes. That's a lot, compared to his opponent, who only earned 49. Maybe it's because the winner of this presidential election double majored in sociology and economics. And I'll give you another hint. This president was elected before the year 2000. You want to give it a shot? Anybody want to type a guess into the chat or unmute yourself and give yourself a chance to guess? Up to you.
I'm not really sure.
Yeah, this one's hard. I was surprised when I learned that Ronald Reagan actually has a dual major in sociology and economics. Oftentimes in the academy, what you'll sort of see is that many people that end up in university end up leaning a little bit to the left. And this is a critique that you'll hear from some conservative folks that sort of doubt the value of higher education. So I just like to point out that one of the heroes of conservatives also had a sociology degree. Maybe one last famous person for you. I bet you'll get this one. So this spouse of a U.S. president grew up on the south side of Chicago before earning a sociology degree as an undergrad, and then went on to go to Harvard and get a law degree. Can you guess who this famous president's wife is? Just wrote a book in the not too recent past.
Michelle Obama. I'm not very.
Nice job, Ella. You're 2 for 4. Not bad. It turns out that Michelle does have a sociology degree, and lots of social activists have a background in sociology. It turns out that if you study sociology, you think about how social systems work. And so if you're interested in being a politician, sociology actually is a pretty good discipline to have in your back pocket, even if you end up pursuing political science. So there's a lot of other folks that studied sociology before they went on to their eventual careers. These include Jesse Jackson. We have tons of politicians like Maxine Waters, Barbara Mikulski, Cory Booker. Wow, lots of politicians. Also, the U.S. Youth Poet Laureate. I don't know if you caught that in the inauguration just last year, but Amanda Gorman studied sociology while also writing poetry. We also have Dr. Ruth, the famous sex doctor. We have lots of sports folks. Actually, I have a couple of ties to sports folks. I used to be the sociology professor for Jermaine Kearse, one of the Seahawks players that was on that famous Super Bowl winning team. I also taught Nick Montana, who's Joe Montana's son. It's kind of interesting. Cal Penn also was a sociology major before he was brought into the Obama administration. So there's a lot of famous folks that have sociology in their background, and maybe the next famous person might be you, Ella, because sociology can lead you down lots of interesting pathways. So if we're thinking about what sociology is and who's studied it before, just in a very general way, we can talk about where sociology is offered. And it turns out that all the Seattle colleges have sociology courses, but what I just learned a few moments ago is that the, I guess, most comprehensive programs are at North Seattle College, where I teach, and also at Seattle Central. I know that South Seattle College also offers a couple of sociology classes, but it seems like maybe those offerings are not as full as they are at North and Central. And oftentimes the entry requirements are basic college entry requirements. So if you have pre-college English and math, you'll be well situated for taking that first sociology course. So if we're thinking beyond those entry-level requirements, Ella, you brought this up just a moment ago when you were asking about what kinds of things you learn. In sociology, the faculty that will be teaching you all have advanced degrees. At the community college level, we have to have at least a master's. And then at universities, those folks oftentimes have those PhD thingies. But when you're an undergrad, your general focus when you're dealing with all these really brainy folks is going to be learning what other people have already discovered. You're taking in all of the information that has been created before you arrived at the college or the university. But if you transition over to the graduate level, what I call postgrad, you'll begin becoming a researcher. You'll develop the skills that it takes to do new research or to design new study designs, and that will turn you into the type of person that actually teaches everybody else about the new things that you discover. So that's kind of a cool thing to keep in mind. And along the way, you're going to learn so much stuff. And so we already talked a lot about the topical content, but remember that sociologists also, we're scientists. And so we use the scientific method that oftentimes involves either learning in-depth interview skills, if you're going to go down like a qualitative ethnographic route, or you might end up learning a lot about statistics if you're going to go down like a quantitative hypothesis testing route. Whatever the case may be, one of the skills you're going to pick up is a lot of critical thinking. Sociologists are great debunkers of old myths. We like to look at the way that systems work to really understand whether or not the claims that are being made by folks folks in power are actually sensible claims. Sometimes those powerful folks make arguments that just don't stack up with the data. And so when you become a sociologist, or if you choose to go down this pathway, you're going to really learn those skills that it takes to critically evaluate what other people are saying in the world around you. And this has pretty big implications for your own life. I know for me personally, once I started learning about sociology, it was like I finally woke up. You know, it was like I finally understood the way that the world was working around me, or at least I was beginning to understand. There's so much to learn. But the way that I teach is predicated, it's based on all of the sociology that I've learned over the course of my life as a student. The reason why I interact with my students the way that I do is because of the sociology that I've taken into myself. And a couple of really important consequences that generally result from sociology is that you learn to be humble. Studying people is really hard. People are so unique, and they're so diverse, and there's so much variation between individuals that it's pretty common that sociologists are wrong before we learn more and become even more correct. And along the way, what's also common to develop alongside humility and critical thinking is a really deep curiosity about why people are the way that they are, and what we can do as individuals and with our close collaborators to make the world a better place. And so I really believe that if you take sociology on as a minor or a major, these outcomes will also become true for you. Okay, so Ella, you're in a unique position. You pretty much have me all to yourself, which used to be something that was only reserved for the elites, like the monarchs, like the queens and kings. But today, this is the position that you're in. Do you have any questions or comments at this time?
This might be like a future slide or something, but I was a little bit interested in do you think there, like for taking sociology, you would learn more about like career opportunities, or learn like what careers may be involved with it within those who are interested or major in psychology or sociology?
That's a really good question. And so to be honest with you, it's actually kind of uncommon that your sociology classes will teach you about career opportunities for people with sociology degrees. That being said, I do have a slide coming up for you in just a moment where we can talk a little bit about that. But what you would learn in sociology as a discipline is the way that work functions. You would learn things like the relationship between a college education and lifetime earnings, or the relationship between education overall at college level, or less or more than college, and other sorts of life outcomes like health outcomes, criminal outcomes, outcomes that relate to things like marital matching, things like that, because the social life is incredibly complex. But that being said, Ella, what I want to do is I want to make sure to give you a little bit of insight into the types of careers that people with sociology degrees have. And maybe I'll skip forward and come back to this slide in a little bit because I want to make sure to prioritize your curiosities. And so let's see, we'll come back to that. What are the jobs associated with this major? This is exactly what you're asking about, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong here. But sociology, because of the skills that you pick up through the curriculum, things like study design and critical thinking, curiosity, and your ability to evaluate claims, you're very well positioned to hold a number of different types of jobs. So it's super common for people with sociology degrees to go on to teach sociology. I think one of the reasons for that is that we get so excited about it that we just want to share it. But that's not the only thing that people with sociology backgrounds can do. If you have a sociology background and you apply it, you could become a really good market analyst or an advertising agent. You could also become a behavioral scientist. It turns out that sociology and psychology go together really well. In fact, there's a famous sociologist named Doug Massey who was a triple major. How does that happen? But Doug Massey married a psychologist. Doug Massey is a sociologist. I've always wondered what their dinner conversations are like. I bet you they're pretty awesome. But sociology majors can also find themselves becoming statisticians if you have a love for numbers, or data scientists, very similar. Back when I just got my bachelor's degree, I almost got a job as a data manager, which would have been a pretty cool position. And let me know if you want to hear more about that. Sociologists also are very well positioned to be criminologists because criminologists oftentimes come from sociological backgrounds, and we tend to be pretty critical about the way the criminal justice system system works in the United States today? Here's the quick and dirty answer. It doesn't work very well. You can also become a probation officer, and this is more applied. Social service manager, public relations specialists, all of these folks use the sociological knowledge that they've learned in an applied way to make the world a better place. So this isn't the only set of jobs that people can get. It turns out actually that I know a lot of folks who've taken sociology and used it as a minor. I just talked with a student not too long ago that is currently practicing pediatric medicine just close by on Sandpoint Way. So that sociology student became a medical doctor. I know some folks who are working at Deloitte, one actually still in the area, another one just moved to Austin, Texas to continue working for Deloitte. That's a business. Got a degree from the UW Foster School of Business. Both of those students did. I know actually another student who's currently working for the Office of the Public Defender here in Seattle. So it turns out that sociology can lead to many different life outcomes, but no matter which way you go, I think it's important to know. In fact, one student this quarter told me that they wish they would have taught this discipline in high school just because it's so wildly applicable. So Ella, I hope this is helpful for you. Is there anything else about jobs you'd like to know? Maybe salaries?
That would also be interesting. I did a little bit of research on my own, and typically when I look into things I'm interested in, it typically is not a very high salary or very competitive. So that's something I've been thinking about a lot, because there are things I'm interested in, like such as sociology, anthropology, and those are, as much as I'm interested in, the career opportunities are limited. And so it's kind of been going between the two.
You know, I'm really happy to hear that you're thinking about this. Back when I was a college student, I wasn't really thinking about long-term stuff at all. And that's both positive and negative. But if you're thinking 10 years down the road about what types of careers you might be able to slot yourself into, you can start making preparations. And so you're essentially planning ahead, which is a really good idea. It turns out that finding information about the types of incomes that sociology majors actually have is really hard. So this is kind of like a applied way to think about incomes and jobs. Let me take you through a little bit of data here. So there are 3 different data sources that I want to show you with respect to jobs and their incomes in the Seattle area. One of them comes from the Workforce Development Council, and let's take a quick look at this one here. It should pull up a web page for you, and I hope, Ella, can you see this? If you can see this, either tell me or throw up like an emoji or something. Just let me know that you're not still looking at the PowerPoint presentation.
1 sec, I'm going to try and exit this.
Sure.
Computer issues.
Oh, no, I totally understand that. But we should be looking at the career coach from the King County Workforce Development Council. And so here, if I put in the keyword sociology, it's going to pull up
could you maybe paste that in the chat, one of those links?
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that. That's a good idea. So what I'll do is I'll post in the link to the sociology page for the Workforce Development Council of Seattle King County. And once you plug that into your URL there, or to your address bar, you should see that they claim that sociology teachers working in a post-secondary environment, which means after high school, have a median salary of about $80,000, $79,526. You also see a separate category for social science research assistants. I don't know who these people are that are making $48,000 a year. Oftentimes, in my experience, those social science research assistants are graduate students, and they're not making that much money. Then we have sociologists down here at the bottom, which mysteriously make less money than the sociology teachers working in a post-secondary capacity. But usually, I'd reserve this title for people who are working at the university level with PhDs. So I'm kind of surprised by this median salary of 58. And the major reason why I wanted to show this to you is because there's a lot of different services online that will say that they're giving you correct information. But how are you going to know if this information is correct? It's kind of hard. I mean, they don't tell you how they make it. They don't tell you what the methods are that they use to compile this information. They're just asking you to trust them, which is kind of an interesting and awkward ask. So let me show you one other, one other website here. This other one is called ZipRecruiter, and as soon as I pull it up, I'll also paste the URL into the chat for you. All right. And so if you're looking at ZipRecruiter, and maybe I'll give you a moment to click on that. ZipRecruiter has some really interesting stuff going on. So what they tell us here is that the national average salary for sociology majors is $58,580. I'm not sure how they're coming up with this idea, but they say that sociology majors earn somewhere between $20,000 and $130,000 per year. And this is national data. So I'm kind of confused by this again, and I'll share my confusion with you in just a little bit. But I'm not really sure how they're constructing this information. In fact, if we enter in a zip code for our local area, let's see, the zip code for North Seattle College is 98103. And so they claim that the, let's see, is this an average? Yeah, it's probably an average. That the average income for a sociology major in zip code 98103 is $44,915. And I'm still kind of confused about this because I don't know who these folks are. And the reason why I'm so confused is because I've actually looked at like the real data, and the real data leads us in some interesting directions. So just as a quick double check here, remember this number, $130,000, right? This, according to ZipRecruiter, is the maximum or the top salary that people with sociology majors earn. But I'm not so sure about this because if we return to our PowerPoint presentation, you'll see that the last thing that I put here for you is direct archival data for specific salaries for government employees. Ella, did you know that if you work for the government, your salary is public information? This is interesting.
I did not actually. That's
Yeah.
very interesting.
Yeah, and so one thing that is correct for the United States is that we have a norm, and a norm is just a rule about what's appropriate to do and what's not appropriate to do, right? And so we have a norm in America that says that we shouldn't talk about our salaries with each other. It's deemed to be kind of like uncouth or gauche or awkward or maybe inappropriate. But it turns out that many social scientists today are starting to question whether or not we should actually be talking with each other about our salaries. And so they talk about this in the context of what is known as pay transparency. The idea is that if you talk with your colleagues or your peers about how much money you make, you can actually start to figure out whether or not you're being paid appropriately. Meanwhile, if you don't discuss your salary with anybody, who wins? What do you think?
That's an interesting concept, actually. I think I might have heard of that before.
Yeah. And so if employees don't discuss their salaries with each other, I mean, who has all the power?
Mm. That is pretty, yeah, I think I've heard that in a TV show or something.
Yeah, it turns out that if employees don't discuss their wages with each other, the person that has all the power is the employer. The employer could make decisions about whether to overpay or underpay individual employees and ask that they not share that information with each other. So in a weird way, if we don't talk about our salaries with each other, it actually sets the stage for discrimination and bias in the way that we're compensated. Talk to some people from Hollywood and they'll tell you pretty quickly that they know that some people get paid way more than others, and it's not fair. And in 2022, if you were talking with Deepa Bandaru, the social justice professor here at North Seattle College, you'd find that many people in the Seattle area think that maybe our gender or our race or ethnicity shouldn't cause differences in our pay. But how are we going to know unless we talk about it? So this is all just a big preamble to showing you this real data that's compiled by the state. Here being the state of Washington. This is all of the salary information for employees of the state of Washington, Ella. This is crazy stuff, especially if you've never seen it before. And so I will paste this URL in the chat for you so you can paste it into your address bar. And if you paste that URL into your address bar, you should be able to see the highest paid employee in Washington state as of 2020.
Yeah, it's the head football coach.
Oh
Wow.
my geez. Isn't that a lot of money? And what's kind of interesting here is if we compare this against the governor, like the top political person in Washington state, Mr. Inslee. Mr. Inslee doesn't make nearly $3.2 million, right? The salary for Mr. Inslee in 2020 was a measly $184. So it's interesting to consider who gets paid what and why. But remember, the reason why I brought this up to you was to maybe raise some questions about the data that we saw from ZipRecruiter and also from the King County Workforce Development Council. It turns out that I know some of the sociology faculty at the University of Washington. Let's plug one of them in. Catherine Beckett, actually, I think I have the last name first. Catherine Beckett has become famous in the last 5 years because oh, we're going to lose our time together. Catherine Beckett, I'll just summarize this for you quickly, was the lead author on a paper to the Washington State Supreme Court that led to a moratorium on the death penalty. Talk about huge impact, you know, making it so Washington State no longer practices the death penalty. That's pretty big. And Catherine Beckett, as you can see, in the year 2020, earned $254,000. Now, if we remember that ZipRecruiter said the top salary is 130, this raises some questions. Maybe ZipRecruiter is not as accurate as ZipRecruiter thinks that it is. And if we're not sure about the top salary, what can we say about the average or the median or the bottom? This raises questions, and this is the way that sociologists would think. They'd say, oh, maybe we should look at the data and see if it supports the claims that are being made by some of these online entities. Ella, really good to see you today. Sorry, we're about to get kicked out of this room. Goodbye.
Oh yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
See who comes back. Last time, last week when I was here, almost everyone came back. It was pretty cool.
Yep, I think everyone should be back now.
Okay, great. You're all back.
Oh, it looks like we lost Susan. I don't know what happened, but I think we lost her. But I can kind of step in. So thanks everyone for attending. I hope you enjoyed your sessions tonight. We do have a feedback form here. I'm going to post it in the chat so that you can let us know what you liked about today. And it also gives us some information about what you're interested in, and we can send you some follow-up information. So feel free to visit that link there. We're also going to email it out to those who attended. And this was the final day of Discover Seattle Colleges. So we are going to be posting all of the recordings up on our website, seattlecolleges.edu/discover. So if you missed a session that you're interested in going back and looking at, it's going to be up on the website sometime next week. And we are repeating these Discover sessions again in April. So if you're interested in continuing to learn more about what our colleges offer, we're going to be doing the series once again in April with probably a lot of the same speakers, but some new ones too. And we have Susan back. Susan, any other things to wrap up?
I am so sorry. My internet jumped out. Now it jumped back in. No, but what I'm going to suggest to you all who are still in attendance, just keep exploring things. You may have questions. You may not have them right now, but you may have them tonight. You'll have them over the week. If you talk to people about what you heard or saw today, what you experienced today, you'll develop some questions. You might hear their questions. So refer your friends, the people you're talking to. We're going to have more sessions, but if you fill out the survey or the inquiry form that Rachel just referred to, you're going to get a response right from the faculty. There's also an ability to reach out to admissions offices on all 3 of our campuses. And I can get you directly to anybody on either of our campuses that you need to talk to, their programs, maybe the ones you saw tonight, or maybe other ones as well. And I am happy to put the email. My personal one is easy, but I can go ahead and put the office email. Please do reach out, not just in the survey and as well, but do the admissions offices, because they're going to be available for you. I'm going to put the email in this chat. And plus another reason to reach out, we're always developing new programs. South, Central, and North are developing programs continuously, and we're all launching something slightly new, slightly different for fall. So do stay connected with us and feel free to reach out. We're here to help you. Are there any questions in chat?
Is there a way we can apply for the April events?
You don't have to apply. You mean the April information event, or do they actually start?
Yes.
Okay. You won't have to apply. Rachel, is it going to be posted on our website with the new registration link?
That's a good question. I'm going to kick that over to Barb on a timeline regarding that.
Do you want us to get back to you? You can, if you're wanting to put your email in chat, you may not wish to right now, but if you do, or Ella, somehow you want to email admissions, I make sure I'll find it for you and I'll get it out to you.
Yeah, I'll just jump in here. Hi, it's Barb. We will make sure that we send out, as soon as we get the registration open for April, we'll let everyone know who was a part of the sessions in February that were open for April, and you can go ahead and register just like you did for the February events. But we'd love to have you back. That's awesome that you're already looking forward to April.
And you can bring people with you.
But we'll try to get those set up fairly soon so that we can start building registration and letting you know what to expect.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ella. Are you looking for something specific, by the way?
Not particularly. I received this link from from my school website, so I was just not sure where I could find more information again.
Okay, okay, great. That would be at the North Seattle College. I mean, excuse me, at the Seattle College's website. Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to go back to seattlecolleges.edu/discover, we will always have information there about this event.
Put that in chat. Thank you for your questions.
And on our social media accounts, we'll always post up there too.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, well, with that, I hope you have a lovely evening. Thank you so very much for attending the Discover Seattle Colleges event, and do spread the word. We look forward to hosting this again in April. If you have any questions, you'll have the follow-up survey to reflect. Put your questions in the survey and we'll get back to you. Have a great night.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye-bye.
And thank you, presenters, so much for being part of this again this year or for the first time this year. Really appreciate it. We'll be in touch about some next steps and would love your feedback too. But thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you.
And have a good night, everyone.